What it do, everybody? It's your boy King Crowder back again with another edition of History You May Not Know and Things that are not taught in detail for sure. Today's lesson, we will go down and talk about the great massacre that happened during the period of ethnic cleansing again, during the Red Summers and the nadir of race relations of America. This focus will be on East St. Louis, focused on the East St. Louis of Illinois and the St. Louis eastern part of Missouri. What happened that there was a series of labor-related and race attacks by white Americans murdering over 200 black Americans between late May and early July of 1917. Another 6,000 people were left displaced and homeless after the burning, vandalisms, and over $9.5 million in 2023 in property damages was done. Think about this. These events took place on both sides in the industrial city on the east bank of the Mississippi River. It was a direct opposite of St. Louis that happened, where particularly white-led violence throughout the city led to multiple rioting, looting, and the worst case of labor-related violence in American history. It was among the worst racial wars that happened at this time. In the aftermath, you got to understand, the Chamber of Commerce called for a resignation of the local police enforcement. They were told not to shoot the white rioters, let the violence ensue, where the number of the city's black residents had to remove from public school. And then think about this, y'all, over the next few days, 35% of the black population of the school district vanished. They were gone, marching in silent protest in New York City, and nobody was ever pursued or arrested for these crimes. Let's take a deeper dive. In 1917, when the wars were going on, World War II, many labor shortages and people were going to fight in these nations. Many people have been descendants of European immigrants around this time. During the Great Migration, many black Americans were leaving the South, heading north. We all know about that throughout history, right? Reason why this is such a big deal was because they were going to fulfill these jobs that were left vacant. Many of them were leaving this job in Jim Crow segregation South to flee from lynching that were happening, lynch mob and lynching agencies, and many were coming to remove themselves from Jim Crow. Labor agencies recruited black Americans because they needed the labor. There were so many job openings that needed to be fulfilled, and strictly labor hands were needed during these war times. The neighboring communities of Missouri and Illinois had a problem with that. Many of the southern migrants were having an issue with competing with the black labor because they were also doing such a great job. We all know how business goes. It doesn't matter what job or your ethnicity, they care about who does the job the best. Many black Americans were moving to the city, paying taxes, adding jobs, adding things into this area. They were doing the jobs in an excellent fashion. Remember, they were building schools, churches, facilities, and building up their own community that was thriving. So at the period when we saw this industry growing, you began to see labor disputes coming up. Unabashed accusations were made. The blacks were doing this. They were taking jobs. They were over-competing. What we do not realize is that a lot of these things were lies. A lot of these were jealousy, and a lot of them were extreme hatred because they had to compete for these jobs. Many European immigrants came over here with a entitlement ideology and mindset, saying, this is my job, I earned it, I need it. They didn't believe in the American philosophy of you gotta compete. And so what they tried to do was they undercut the black workers. They undercut them, and the black workers were willing to accept less at the time because they needed it to fulfill the duties that they had. So when the racial tensions began to just bubble up, because we started to say, you began to hear, they're taking our jobs, they're taking our labor, we got to get them, we got to go after them. That is when the white lynch mob formed in downtown East St. Louis. They began attacking the black homes, in the streetcars, in the buildings, without being known. The violence was so heavy in law enforcement, the local law enforcement refused to step in. The National Guard had to come in. Does this story sound similar? Local police enforcement refused to jump in. The National Guard has to come in to settle peace in this country. Think about this, y'all. Many people in the black communities were trying to leave. trying to go after and just trying to work. The speculators at this job were so abashed for shooting people at random, beating them, burning down their homes, fighting them. Nobody knew what caused this incident. What was such a tragic thing that most people do not know is that blacks were trying to flee across the Eden's Bridge over the Mississippi River to St. Louis to escape the violence. Over 1,500 black Americans sought freedom in government buildings, and the workers did not want to let them in. You got to understand, the Red Cross and other entities had to come down to settle the peace. What happened that most people don't realize is that as people were trying to flee, run, and escape this war-trying area, they were getting shot in the river, shot in the back, shot unabolishedly, and people were dying. We're talking about men, women, and children were murdered based off labor disputes. The only people that wrote about these crimes was the great Ida B. Wells. She wrote about this, that over 200, 300 black Americans were killed. The white newspaper at the time grossly underestimated the numbers. Remember, those were the people killed. What about the people displaced? Ida B. Wells wrote vehemently about the people happening, the black community being banished, how they were displaced, how all their resources and wealth was completely gone. The black community's reaction was to completely leave that area of East St. Louis, completely leave that eyesore area. But think about this. To this day, you will see many areas of this St. Louis without labor or communities being built. Most people in that community have no idea this was the cause of that. When they decided to leave those areas, many of the black communities and businesses that were once there were gone. They all moved away, decided to migrate more north, and they lost such a tax base. They lost such a tax base that literally the next school year, almost 40% of the children did not return. Like I said earlier, East St. Louis Chamber of Commerce demanded a police chief and the detectives resign overnight due to their lawless behavior, the lack of protecting all the people, the lack of arresting the white destroyers of this area, the estimated 9.1 damage they did to their own communities, and the government did nothing. Think about how gross negligent that was, that the Chamber of Commerce had to speak out on why this incident was so grotesque and what it did. Not only did they hurt their labor, did they hurt their businesses, they are still seeing a hurt in most of the communities and business industry to this day. If you wonder why some areas are strictly displaced, a lot of the time you can see a lot of these war crimes that happen and these crimes against humanity. If you are from Illinois or Missouri, have you learned about the great crime that happened in East St. Louis and how it affects this community to this day? Post-reaction, when the blacks Americans at this time know that this was happening, they decided just to leave. They knew that the justice was not going to be oversaid, and when even the government reaction, the governor spoke on this case. The governor said, "We're going to investigate. I don't want to accuse anyone. I will answer this question. We will do a thorough investigation of this case to find the victim of this crimes." In October, the state tried to arrest 25 blacks and only 10 white Americans charged with crimes. Not the 3,000 white men that were charged in the crime and burned down the buildings. All of the black Americans were more prosecuted and tried for crimes, including Dr. Burgundy, a black dentist, a leader, and a community activist in East St. Louis. The community to this day has not recovered, and we still see these crimes against humanity not taught and undersold throughout our history. It's your boy King Crowder teaching the tragic history of East St. Louis and how these war crimes against humanity have not been taught. Smash that like, comment, and subscribe button. I hope you learned something from this channel because crimes against humanity like this still have not been taught, and we need to educate ourselves as American citizens so we can learn and not repeat these lessons. It's your boy, checking out. Peace.